IVNation Sports Talk up, rolling Wednesday. That means Mailbag Day. The guy with the bug out eyes is Vince D'Addario. I'm Sean Stiers. I tell you what, man, what a beautiful day today.
You're not kidding.
If the weather's like this everywhere, it's no wonder there's nobody here in the chat tonight.
I came up with like an excuse because I knew the gym classes were outside. That I had to go talk to one of the teachers. Like I was going outside today. I was getting out of the little cellar, office and getting outside because it was absolutely gorgeous. And I'll be honest with you, I was this close to bailing on you. About an hour ago, I got a call that they needed help at the track meet, at the unified track meet. And I was like, oh, it's so nice outside, but I've got plans.
Unified track meet, that's like the special needs thing,
yes.
Right? Okay.
Yes.
That's
They're doing senior night tonight.
Okay.
And the PA announcer's wife got a flat tire.
Oh.
And so they're like, we can always call Vince, but Vince had plans. So
Vince did have plans, and I'm glad that Vince kept his plans.
Yes, that's right. I couldn't bail on you. Couldn't bail on you guys.
That's right. Well, it is Mailbag night, and we have a few questions coming in. Salty got in late, but he filled up the queue relatively quickly. While we're waiting for was that you or me?
You paused on me.
Did your internet leave for a second? Both of my, I got the spinning circles, but I just looked, and according to this, my internet is fine.
You paused on me. I don't see that my internet is the problem, but
okay. All right.
Hey, whatever. We're back.
We're right back. Get the questions in.
Okay.
Literally, I'll just be a couple seconds. I'm not going to go very far.
Oh,
okay?
All right. That's exciting.
I'm going to show you something.
Oh, I can't. Oh, no. I think I know what's coming. This is exciting. And the problem is I did not do my duty on my end. So I think this is going to be very, very interesting. There it is. There it is. Wow.
Look at this.
Wow.
Look at this, huh? This is what I was talking about.
That is silky, yeah.
Silky smooth starter jacket.
Quality.
You think about that.
It's
got, and it's like it's used, like the jacket itself is in really good condition. There's like one of the letters that's got a little tear in the stitching.
You can't tell.
But it's like this thing has got to be at least 30 years old, and it is sweet.
30. It might be more than that. I'm just saying.
I know. And it's the Cowboys color that I like. It's the older royal blue.
Yeah.
Not the navy blue that they use more of these days.
Right.
This is jacket one. I'm waiting on the other one that I ordered, different team.
Okay.
Come in. I got a message from the guy over the weekend that he's been on vacation in Florida. And so he was driving home. Yeah, it's like, you're selling stuff on eBay, dude. Take it with you.
Seriously.
Right.
There's mailboxes everywhere.
That's right. Mailbox, etc., or whatever it's called.
Right.
Okay. So in the meantime, we do have a few questions rolling in. Get your questions in for the Mailbag show here tonight. Otherwise, you're just going to sit here and look at my silky smooth Cowboys jacket.
And see, it's very interesting because when you say starter jacket, that's not what I envision in my head.
Really? We were talking after the show, like you're thinking like the zip up with the zip up, like the puffier multicolors and stuff like that.
Yes, sir.
That was like the later edition.
Okay.
This is actually even got like
starters
on the sleeve there.
Yeah, I was thinking like, it's got the starter logo on the zipper, like the pull.
I know what you're talking about.
Is the starter. Yeah, that's the kind that I had. So I'm still in search of, by the way.
Salty wants to know if I'm fondling my jacket. I could
Yes.
be, Salty. There
The answer
are
is
rumors.
yes. The answer is yes. And
I've
there's
been
nothing
like,
wrong with that.
I showed this to Jesse, and he's like, because the Cowboys play in Cleveland and Pittsburgh this year, both.
Okay.
And so we're kind of waiting to see if either one of those is going to be an option to go to. Obviously, since Jesse lives in Cleveland, that would be the most convenient. But it'll depend on if it's November. You know what I mean? Like, the variables, basically. We cover Notre Dame football, and I do Notre Dame women's basketball on the radio. So
Right.
the schedule comes out here within the next couple of weeks at some point. So,
well, and luckily, NFL's on a different day. And if it happens to be an away game for Notre Dame, I think you're in great shape. Great shape.
I know. I'm hoping. Fingers crossed. We'll see.
Yeah.
It's probably going to be, my guess is it'll be in November, and I'll be doing a basketball game when it happens, but you never know. But he was saying, like, I've got to wear the jacket, if I come there. Obviously, if it's
Not
in
wrong.
September, I can't wear the jacket, but
you're going to wear the jacket.
See.
You're wearing the jacket.
No matter what, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Tommy, speaking of Jesse, he was asking if I can text him. I guess Tommy sent him an email about Coach Freeman going to, I think it's Massillon is where he's going. I did text him, waiting to hear back, Tommy. So I will let you know. Yep. And in the meantime, DK, of course, making fun of Tommy, and telling him that he's asking if Jesse can come out to play because he won't answer the emails. So
don't feel bad. He doesn't answer my emails either. So you guys are all in the same boat.
I don't think you guys answer each other emails. That's the problem. You've got a lack of communication going.
That's fair. That's fair. I'm trying to get him to buy something from me. So I need him to get on the before I put it out to the ether.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
That's interesting. All right. Well, let's jump into some questions here.
All right.
The transfer portal deadline has come and gone.
Yeah.
And Salty saying it closed with no Irish entries after Micah Bell. The scholarship count is 86. Are you surprised? And what happens next? And now, before we specifically...
You can just throw a bunch in there if you want.
I was going to say, because there were kind of some that went along with this as well that I wanted to find here real quick. And he says, without players leaving via the portal, scholarships at 86, what needs do the Irish have in the portal, and how will they achieve them? So, two parts, obviously. They are at 86. I mean, you're only one away from the limit. I guess you go ahead and start off with your thoughts on the lack of activity in the transfer portal.
I'm shocked, frankly. Absolutely shocked, because we know that they need to get under, because they're going to be bringing people in, and we know they're going to bring people in. We know that they don't even have a punter on the roster, really. I mean, they kind of do. But so they're going to bring in at least a punter. But I saw that there's a pretty high-end, offensive tackle out there that I'm sure Notre Dame is at least going to be in contact with, And so I'm shocked that they didn't get a little bit lower, to be honest with you. Now, I'm fighting a sneeze right now. I can feel it, and
I can tell
right
something
there,
was going
man.
on. I wasn't sure if it was sneeze or exactly what that was.
But no, I think that you're still going to see some attrition. Obviously, could be a graduate. It could be a medical situation. I mean, you're going to see attrition from the roster because they got to get to 85, and they're going to bring in guys. So I'm just surprised that they're not under the 85 at the moment.
Yeah, and I don't know if you've seen the Champions Lounge. Brian posted something about that, and I think he talked about it on his show earlier today.
Okay.
As well. Essentially, there were a lot of, sort of hard conversations that were had with guys, like upfront conversations, whatever way you want to characterize it. And based on that, I think they thought some guys were going to leave, but those guys have all opted to stay around and stick it out and, battle for jobs and that kind of thing. And so now that's good, because I think that means that, one, you're being honest with guys, and two, you've got the kind of guys on your roster who aren't just going to tuck and run and who want to stay and fight for jobs and that kind of thing. But it obviously makes things difficult when you're trying to manage a roster, and you do have to go out, and Marcus Freeman has already said they're going to go out and get a punter.
Right.
They still need to bring in at least one cornerback because of the depth situation that they've got there after Micah Bell left, and with Benjamin Morrison still injured. And there is the right tackle spot that is the biggest, that'll at least be the biggest competition going into fall training camp, just if things stand right now. So if you filled those positions, that's 3 more you're going to add. So now you're at 89. Bottom line is, it sounds like there are going to be some medical retirements that will be coming up, and that kind of thing. And what that also means is they still honor the scholarship, but you're not playing football anymore, so you don't count towards the roster. I mean, that's kind of the next step, because again, we always say it always works itself out. Well, you also always typically have transfers, but nobody decided to go. And and that is, it's obviously extremely rare in these last couple of years that we're living in the transfer portal era, where nobody left.
Yeah.
Except for Micah Bell and Clarence Lewis.
Shocking, to be honest with you. We've been hearing whispers of different names and different things, and all of these different deals, and I'm just shocked we didn't get more announcements. To be honest, we were all kind of wondering to ourselves, are they just like holding out? What is happening? But then deadline's come and gone. Now I do wonder, and I'm kind of thinking out loud here. You can jump into the portal anytime when you're a graduate. Any of these guys that are getting their degree this May, are they technically graduates right now, or do they got to wait until they actually get the diploma in their hand before they can, still potentially jump into the portal? Does that make sense? Like the guys that are getting their degree right now, like those guys
if they intended on leaving,
anytime.
They could still put their name in the portal.
They could jump in at any
when
time
it was going to be. Yeah.
So, could one of those guys be one of the guys that jumps into the portal? Maybe. I don't know. Obviously they're going to get to the 40, to the 85. It's just a matter of how they end up doing it.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Follow up to that, more specifically, Salty asked about Kenny Minchie and Jaden Mickey. He said they were the subject of portal rumors, but have stayed put. Should either have entered the portal, and why?
I didn't hear any of those rumors, to be honest with you.
This is why they're rumors, first of all, right? Like, this is why they're rumors. Just because things start, but usually it's some fan who starts wringing his hand and starts something on a message board or on social media, right? Like, that's where
100%. Look,
typically springs from.
If a quarterback was going to leave, then I think Kenny Minchie would have been the one to go. I mean, if you look at the depth chart, you look at who's there, it feels like Kenny Minchie might be the odd man out. So maybe that's why his name was floated out there, but all 4 quarterbacks are still on the roster. As far as Jaden Mickey, he's the number 3 corner right now, in my opinion. He's going to play a ton. And he can play field, and he can play boundary. So he's literally one snap away from playing even more. But even as the 3rd corner, he's going to play a bunch. So I don't know that there was any incentive for Jaden Mickey to leave. Notre Dame's got a very, very,
I mean, obviously, unless
defense.
He was going to get some
massive
NIL deal to go someplace else, and that's always a factor in this. I mean, just look, we were talking about Nick Saban the other day, and the fact that Nick Saban in the draft coverage talked about trying to get that Toledo cornerback to go in the portal, even though he was never in the portal. So that there's a lot of that, at the very least, indirect, roundabout conversation going on. So maybe some of that happened, but like Josh was saying, it was an amateur Notre Dame website about Mickey and Minchie. And now there are, and again, like, I don't want to point the fingers because I don't know where it came from, but there are a lot of basically blogs and aggregators out there who pick and choose and maybe even start speculating and stuff like that. And this is why we don't, like, when this stuff happens, we're not going to mention guys by name, because then all it does is it turns into something bigger. There's no sense, talking about this until it happens. Now, with the quarterback specifically, like, obviously that's been discussed a little bit more because of the very specific situation that you have. But I
Yes.
still
Right.
felt like, and I've said this before with Angeli and Minchie, and this is nothing against them, but for where they are right now in their career and their development,
Right.
it's not like they were just going to go someplace unless it was, like a group of five or, like a lower, they were going to have to go down
Right.
to have a realistic chance at probably being a starter right away. And they can stay here and still develop for another year, continue, to battle for spots on the depth chart. And then if they decide to stick around next spring and, battle for the job next spring once Riley Leonard is gone.
Yeah. Yeah. And look, you're absolutely right about the quarterback position. Like Angeli could go someplace and start at a lower level school. And I'm not going to get into it because people got mad at me when I started mentioning the type of school. So whatever. That's still my thought.
He's better than that, Vince. He's better than that.
I know. I'm just a blaspheme. And then Kenny Minchie, I think if he left, I'm not sure unless he dipped, down to a lower level, but like I could see him going to a high Power 5 as the immediate backup though as well. And I don't think he's going to get that at Notre Dame this year.
But again, you're still a backup. You're still a backup.
Absolutely. But I don't think he would be third or fourth. You know what I mean? And so that would be an immediate step up. Now, is that a reason to leave Notre Dame? Not in my opinion, but maybe it would be in his. Like that's the only way I could justify it, for Kenny Minchie.
Yeah. But again, obviously, that is not the case because we're sitting here the day after the transfer portal and Kenny Minchie's not in the transfer portal. So I think a lot of people are shocked that all four of those guys are going to be back this fall, but that is nothing but good for your program. The fact that you've got all four of those guys and they can continue to develop and see what happens, both on the depth chart this year behind Riley Leonard and going forward to next season as well.
What do we got?
Andre, and don't forget, it is mailbag night, so jump in the chat, get your mailbag questions in there. Don't be shy. Andre asks, if you have four running backs playing in the game, what should the distribution be between the players?
Man, that's a loaded question. I think it's going to be 1A and 1B with Love and Price. And then the other two guys, if they're playing four, so it would be like maybe 60, 30, 8, and 2 or something like that. You know what I mean? Like I just don't see the fourth guy getting a bulk of carries. And I think the third guy could end up being maybe a goal line situation. And then the other two are going to get the absolute bulk.
Right. I mean, you would expect Jabron Payne to be short yardage, goal line type guy like he was last year. That was his main
he would
job.
Be that 10%-ish, kind of a carry situation. Yeah.
Like you said, Jadarian Price and Jeremiah Love are the 1A and 1B. And because Jeremiah Love also has that receiver, like both of those guys, were doing it in the spring. Love more so than Price, but Price was also out there working at receiver some this spring. So I think that's a situation where, again, like they can both be on the field, obviously, at the same time, if that happens. And then the fourth job is going to be interesting because like Kedron Young was injured at the end of spring, so we didn't really get a chance to see him do anything live. And Aeneas Williams was out there in the blue gold game, looked pretty good, ran pretty physically and all that kind of stuff. But so that'll be kind of job.
That could be game to game. Honestly, who that maybe that fourth guy is. They want to give another guy, a chance, an opportunity,
and, whatever.
Absolutely. And again, what did Dylan McCullough say? There's 8 spots open. I think Love and Price are going to occupy the majority of those 8. You know what I mean? And so I don't know that you want to go 4 deep, if I'm being honest. Like you might in games where the score's out of hand or, that kind of a thing. But if it's a close game, I want 2, maybe 3, out there. Let's not get crazy.
Yeah, good point. Salty asking about portal activity for men's and women's basketball.
Oof.
Tom Noy is going to be with us
Big
tomorrow, so we can talk to Tom about men's basketball. I mean, in terms of women's basketball, we've pretty much discussed it here. Nat Marshall, I don't know if you saw, she signed with Miami, I think, over the weekend. So that's where she is going to be. KK Bransford came back, and they were hosting some different, but transfer candidates and stuff like that. But as of yet, no signees.
Yeah.
But I would imagine that is going to be coming up here relatively shortly as well, like after graduation and all that kind of stuff. Today was the last day of class over there at Notre Dame.
Oh, all right.
I saw on social media Maddie Westbeld and Olivia Miles were out giving away cookies, I guess, to students.
Where
like
are
an
they
appreciation for, like support at games and
that's
that
cool
kind of thing. So yeah, very cool
for them.
Joe wants to know which player gets more snaps, Faison or Greathouse.
I mean, the follow up by Tommy Guns. I'm going to throw Tommy Guns some love here. He says, Joe, are you specifically talking snaps at the slot position? Which I think complicates the question even more, because if it's just snaps, period, it's Greathouse, because Greathouse is going to play multiple positions.
Yes.
Faison most likely is going to be in the slot the vast majority of the time. They'll move him around a little bit, but I still think Greathouse is going to be the guy that is moving around a lot to really maximize, those matchups. And so Greathouse is the answer to the original question, but Tommy's skew of the slot, I think, might go to Faison, to be honest, because I just think he's going to be in the slot more often, but I think you're going to see both of them on the field.
Absolutely.
Together.
And that's something that Mike Denbrock and Mike Brown both talked about Jaden this spring, is Greathouse's versatility. And we saw him line up in different spots. And with what they've got on this receiver roster, that's what they needed. They needed someone who could do that. They obviously wanted that to happen last year, but it didn't work out the way they thought it was going to work out. And Jaden Greathouse has shown himself to be that guy. So you're absolutely right. Just straight up, who gets more snaps? It's going to be Greathouse because of the flexibility, the versatility that he has. But most snaps in the slot, it'll be Faison, I believe, as well. Thank you for the super chat, Tyler Evans.
Woo!
What fifth-round Notre Dame player is a bigger steal in the NFL draft?
All right, remind me who was drafted in the 5th round, because I don't have that written down in front of me.
Cam Hart, Audric Estime, J.D. Bertrand.
Cam Hart, Audric Estime, J.D. Bertrand. Well, that's tough. I'm gonna go. The funny thing is, I think those three. Well, they're Joel, obviously. I think those three have a really good chance of really being in the league for a long time in whatever role they can carve out. But I think Cam Hart. I'm going to go Cam Hart. I think he's the biggest steal in the 5th round because of the medicals. I think he dropped, but I think he's the biggest steal there in the 5th round.
My initial thought, like Hart was the guy who came to mind, both because we thought that he would go so much higher. But then I kind of, as I went through the Rolodex before, I asked you the question, I was like, well, but Estime's there too, and I'm going to go with Audric Estime, and it may not be necessarily, it might not be immediate for either one of those guys, but I'm going to go with Audric Estime. I think that he's a guy who, even in an era where you've got running back splitting the load and all that kind of stuff, I think ultimately he's going to end up being a multi-1,000-yard rusher here down the road.
Nice.
And I'm not saying it's going to happen this year, but I think it's going to ultimately happen. So I will go Audric Estime because I think that he can be that workhorse type guy. I mean, I think we all kind of thought that. But I mean, Hart would obviously, those are your two options. J.D. Bertrand was more slotted, I think, 5th round, whereas Cam Hart or Estime could have gone anywhere really from the 3rd round on. And the fact that they both ended up going in the 5th round, I think, shocked both of us when it was all said and done.
No doubt about it.
I'm not sure what Tommy meant by this.
Buy, sell, hold.
Oh, was this the start of the show? 1800. He was going military time, so he was saying starting after 6 o'clock.
We started right at 6, by the way.
We did.
We were on the money today.
Came in hot.
Guess you got to buy it.
And by the way, Salty and DK, you're welcome. I took off the Cowboys jacket for him. It was getting a little warm in this room with
Was it?
with the jacket
freezing down in my I need to do the whole close the grates down in the basement, so we can actually get some cold air upstairs, Yeah, it's freezing down here.
Ryan, just shut up. Heard Estimate might get traded to Dallas. Okay.
He's just poking the bear. That's what he's doing.
I know. DK says Marist was the steal. Okay. I see we're all just having fun now. We're just all having fun right now. That's what it is.
Yeah, they are.
Notre Dame and Ohio State had almost no portal activity, while Michigan had 17 players leave. What's going on in Michigan?
Well, what's going on in Michigan is now in LA. That's the problem. Their head coach left. I mean, when the head coach leaves, man, you're going to see a lot of defection. I mean, that's just par for the course. They also had a bunch of guys drafted and a bunch of guys leave to go to the next, whatever the next phase of their life is going to be. So this Michigan roster is going to look a lot different than it did last year. There's no doubt about that. And not only is the roster going to look a lot different, but the schedule gets a lot harder. So all those Michigan fans out there they're not going to be repeating. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, I mean, it comes down to coaching change, and you would have thought that it wouldn't have been like you'd have 17 guys leave when you have that kind of coaching consistency, since they hired from within.
They were trying to keep the consistency, and I don't know here. I think that backfired on them, to be perfectly honest with you. I think they were trying to have as much consistency as possible to keep the roster as, put together as possible. I just feel like that didn't happen. And so you neglected going out and getting a big name. Now, I don't know what big, quote unquote, big name there could have been to bring in. I just think they made the wrong decision. Now, as a Notre Dame fan who hates Michigan, they made the right decision.
See, I was like, the way they played when Moore had to fill in for Harbaugh and all that stuff, like I thought that he should have been the guy. Now, I haven't paid that close attention to what's going on at Michigan, in terms of exactly who these guys are. So are the majority of them depth chart guys? Are they guys who actually would have been starters? That kind of thing. I don't know, because that does matter, when you kind of look at this and make some of the assumptions and stuff like that.
I know the recruiting's hurting. I know that much. But yeah, I mean, I don't know.
I mean, that's good. That's good.
Oh, it's good. Great for Notre Dame.
Michigan out of there. One more playoff spot for everybody else, right?
And one less team for them to compete against on the recruiting trail. So bye-bye, boys. It's been nice knowing you.
Yep. Yeah, they did get Tony Alford for Michigan for running back coach. But, what exactly happens there? I don't know. And that was an interesting move. Like, you don't see too many guys go from Ohio State to Michigan or Michigan to Ohio State.
Very true. That's not something that's kind of frowned upon, actually.
What's that tell you about that guy with the dyed beard down there in Columbus?
Just for Men's NIL deal.
Uh-huh. Salty asks, Notre Dame players are going into the summer period. How do they train? Who puts together a training plan? And are they all together in South Bend?
Well, Salty, this is a good question. A little peek behind the curtain, as they say. And so, yes, the players are going into the summer period. They'll go home for a little while, and then they will come back. Usually around the first week of June is when they end up coming back. And you'll see that all over social media with the freshmen coming in and going into their dorms and all that stuff. And then, so how do they train? Well, they obviously train in the weight room. They do a lot of cardio. They do a lot of conditioning, all that stuff. All the hard training gets done in the summertime. And then on their own, they'll do, 7-on-7s, and they'll get the team together, as they call it, like captain-led type practices, player-led. And who puts it together? That would be a combination of Lauren Lando and Marcus Freeman. They get together, they decide on a plan, and then Lando is in charge. I mean, he's the one, because the coaches can't really have contact And so Lando is in charge, but he is executing the game plan that he and Marcus Freeman put together. So that's basically what it is all summer. And then the entire month of June, these coaches are out recruiting and they're on they're on campus because players are coming to them in June.
Visits
and then July recruiting. Obviously, there's a lot of commitments in July, and then you got the season. So summer goes fast, man. There's no doubt about that.
It does. Grill and chill in July.
The grill and chill, man. Still waiting for that invite. I'm gonna go to my first grill and chill.
Still haven't got it, huh?
Nope, haven't gotten it yet. I mean, I just feel like they're just, right under their nose, but no.
Notre Dame is fast becoming sons of NFL players use. Is this coincidental or deliberate or on the part of both the coaches and NFL alumni and their sons?
I mean, I think there's a trend there, but I also think that NFL guys know what a good program looks like, and they know what a head coach and, on down, right? They know what that looks like to get their kids to the next level. And, along with the education, obviously, that's a big part of it. But from a preparation standpoint, from a development standpoint, they see good things at Notre Dame, and they see how they're treated, and they see how their kids are treated, and they see how they're developed, and all of those different. I mean, all of that goes into why this is occurring. Now, a lot of these guys are former Notre Dame players. That's part of it. But these former Notre Dame players have obviously made contacts throughout their careers, and, they talk as well, right? Those parents all talk to each other, and Notre Dame seems to be the pick for a lot of these guys, and which is fantastic. I mean, obviously Notre Dame's doing something right.
And I think that as sons of NFL guys, their dads who were in the NFL, they've obviously all been through this recruiting process in their time before as well. And they've obviously they played in college, they played in the NFL, and I think that they have a pretty good BS detector. Like they can sniff it out pretty quick, and they can tell who's genuine and who's full of it. And I think that Marcus Freeman obviously comes across as a very genuine person during the recruiting process, and I think that the vast majority of his staff does as well. So I think that is very appealing as well, just in the recruiting process to those guys, the parents of these guys as well. So I think it's somewhat coincidental, but I also feel like when you look at the number of guys with fathers who played in the NFL, they're starting to stack up, because there's always been some here and there, but it's definitely been more concentrated since Marcus Freeman took over.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, look, a lot of these NFL guys, their BS meter is really good, and they're not going to take the bait on the BS that some coaches feed these recruits. You know what I mean? And so it's very obvious Notre Dame recruits with honesty, and I personally appreciate that. I think that's really good, and they obviously back up what they say as well. So again, their BS meter is really good. I'll just say that.
Yeah, this is a good point too from DK. He says, "Do you know how many players those guys watched wash out? They know there's more than football." And
exactly,
they're going to know more than anybody. That the average career in the NFL is still 3.3 years. And that is not a long time. So that means by the time you're 25, 26 years old, your professional football career is done. And that's the vast majority. The reason that average is what it is because there are guys who obviously don't even make it to 3.3 years. For every Tom Brady playing 20 years, there are probably 200 more guys who only made it 1 or 2 years in the NFL. And so what are you going to fall back on at that point?
Absolutely.
And that's a great point, because you can't overlook the value of the degree that you're going to get from Notre Dame.
It's an absolutely great point. And these guys see it every day with guys that don't have a good degree to fall back on, and they didn't make millions and millions and millions of dollars in the NFL, and they need to have something. Or they've seen, guys invest their money very poorly, and, all of those different scenarios. And Notre Dame's not immune to alumni that aren't good, that they're not good with money, right? But I would say the overall majority of the Notre Dame guys at least, know what they're doing post Notre Dame, with their money and with their futures and things like that.
Yes. USMA 87 wants to know how many camps Dylan is going to attend. Are you crowdsourcing this yet?
Yes, seriously. I'm going to be putting up a GoFundMe page. So look, the ones he's absolutely going to are all drivable. Let's just put it that way, because those are the coaches that he has the better relationships with. These big ones that get out on Twitter, they're all fun. They're exciting, all of that. And it's great. But I told him very clearly, if you don't have a personal relationship with these coaches, I'm not putting you on a plane to go to these camps, and with me next to you, obviously.
If they're not actually making more contact than sending you an invitation. Right.
It's awesome to get the handwritten letters and all of these different things. It's great. But all you got to do, and I did this afternoon, is go on Twitter, type in, like today was TCU specialist camp, into the search bar. And all of a sudden you get all these handwritten notes that are word for word identical to the one that he received, except for his name, obviously.
Sure.
Again, awesome to get it. But if the coach isn't going to respond and say, oh, we love you, we've watched your film, all these different things, I'm not popping down $1,000 to get on a plane and go across the country. So yeah, he's currently signed up for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 maybes. So hopefully we get a college degree out of one of these. That's the goal. Right. Scholarship or otherwise. We just want to get this kid to the next level, man. That's all that matters. And they all want to see him at camp. It's what they all say. Well, we want to see you. So it's something else, man. I can't even imagine some of these parents that take their kids just to everything that they get invited to.
I know.
First of all, their leg would fall off. And second of all, they've got to have an unending source of just money flowing. So
no, but I think that's a great way to pare it down. Like, are you just getting an invitation, or is someone actually making consistent contact with you and actually recruiting you out there?
Exactly.
It's a good separator.
It's a very interesting tightrope to walk. You know what I mean? You get a coach that talks to you a bunch and then ghosts you for a month, and then all of a sudden they're talking to you again. It's like, oh, you remember me, like. So it's this. I'm telling you right now, it's wild, but it's fun. So we'll figure it out.
So Notre Dame landed preferred walk-on Jake Tefelsky from Central Michigan. Does he have a scholarship? What ways does Notre Dame use walk-on players? Well, preferred walk-on
means
walk-on. There's no scholarship.
That's the best part. It's like in the same sentence.
Yes.
But Salty, you know what?
They're not using a scholarship on this guy. It's
not your fault. It's not your fault, because on Twitter, when somebody put this out, he put this out there, and I think somebody retweeted it, whatever. The replies were, are they using a scholarship on him? When it literally, in his announcement, said, I'm taking a preferred walk-on spot.
Right.
Like, people, read all the way to the end. But no, he's a walk-on, and that means it does not count towards the 85. He's paying the bills, and obviously, for whatever reason, decided Central Michigan wasn't the spot. Notre Dame was. I mean, I don't know the backstory behind it, but he's a walk-on.
Yeah, and I mean, I would imagine, again, because he's a walk-on, he's a preferred walk-on, but I would imagine he will have an opportunity maybe to show up on some special teams and things like that. But he's going to do what the rest of the walk-ons do. He's going to be out there on scout team throughout, that's going to probably be his main job is scout team stuff.
He's a running back.
Might be the captain of the scout team. So
he's a running back, and he just decided to come to a school that has one of the deepest running back rooms in the country. You know what I mean? So not going to get a scholarship probably anytime soon, but he knows exactly what he's stepping into as well.
Correct. I guess he was at the Blue Gold game a couple of weeks ago. But
Central's not that far away. I mean, I don't know where he's from specifically.
Yeah,
but
Central's what, like an hour and a half, maybe?
Yeah, it's not that far. Maybe 2, but either way, not that far away at all.
Well, Vince, are you ready for rapid fire?
I'm ready for rapid fire. One of these questions, though, I don't have an answer to yet, and I know you're going to have an amazing answer to it. And I have been racking my brain trying to come up with it, and I have not come up with a good one. So,
all right,
it'll be interesting.
Well, I'll see if my answer meets your expectations.
Okay.
I don't know which question it is. Fill in the blank. The most intriguing player on Notre Dame's roster is blank.
I'm sorry, I got to go with the canned answer. It's CJ Carr. He's the most intriguing player to me, and he's not even going to play. So that is probably one of the worst answers possible, but he's still the one that I'm going to be watching the second I walk into practice. Where's number 12? I want to watch him throw the football.
Yep.
So he's the most intriguing to me. Now, if we spin this towards...
And I guess he'll kind of be the most intriguing until and if we actually get to see him on the field in a regular season game, right?
Absolutely. And so I will spin it now towards players that are actually going to play.
Okay, good.
Right?
Good.
Because that's probably more what you were looking for.
Yes.
The most intriguing. Okay, so there's a difference. There's intriguing like storylines. So like competitions, things like that. So I'm staying away from that. So just the player himself, I am going to go with, I know Salty wants me to say Great House, I'm sure. You know what? I'm intrigued with Drake Bowen and what he ends up doing at middle linebacker, because we know what J.D. Bertrand did, and he was basically a coach on the field, and that defense operated the way it did because of J.D. Bertrand. Those are massive shoes to fill in Al Golden's defense. So I'm very intrigued to watch Drake Bowen and see how he handles being the middle linebacker in this defense on this team specifically. So I'm going to go with Drake Bowen.
Okay. That's a good one as well. And we got a late mailbag question in, and we'll follow this question with that, because I think it's a pretty good question. Where were you like 15 minutes ago, Carlos? I wasn't thinking about CJ Carr, but you're probably right. Maybe he's the most intriguing, or he's at the very least the guy that people are most interested in, I guess, at this point after the...
It's the shiny new toy effect.
Yeah.
I mean, and he's really, really talented. I mean, I'm always going to be looking for number 12 when I walk in. Always.
I'm going to go with Boubacar Traore.
Nice.
Though. He is my most intriguing guy because of what specifically is going on at that Viper end position. They have to figure out, they've got to get more production out of that Viper end than what they got last year, basically. But we're still waiting for Botello. We didn't see any, like we saw maybe a couple of hints from Botello between the Jersey scrimmage and the blue gold game. That's something there. We really didn't see the rise from Junior Tui Alamaka, but we did see big flashes from Boubacar. And is that actually going to translate into something in the fall? That's what makes him the most intriguing to me, because that is a position of great need. And if he can step up and help fill that void, who knows, maybe even, kind of take it over by the time things are all said and done. That's what makes him the most intriguing to me right now.
I like it.
Okay. So now, before we get to that,
yes,
USMA 87 nominated Bo Collins. I think that's a good one as well.
That is a good one, because we don't
get to see any
of
him. Yeah. That makes him very intriguing. There's a great shroud of mystery in terms of how Bo Collins is going to fit into that.
I like it.
Yes.
Because it's true, though, because we've seen him at Clemson. And obviously, this isn't Clemson. And so what is he going to look like at Notre Dame? What's that going to look like? Absolutely. I think that's a really good one, actually.
I think so as well. And then Craig D said Love, the intrigue for Jeremiah Love. And I think, maybe the intrigue is, I don't want to speak for Craig, but I mean, there's at least some intrigue there in terms of, okay, we've seen guys dabble with sort of doing different things in the spring that doesn't always translate to the season as well. But
he's going to be really, really good. The only reason it's not intriguing to me is because I feel like I know how good he's going to be.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that it's like, I just know. And watch, he'll be a dud. But I feel like he's going to be very, very good. So it's not like I have a whole lot of question marks about him.
Right. Okay, so the question Carlos had, he says, so I know we're over scholarships that are being said, could Notre Dame do something like Miami did and put kids like Bowen and Faison on their respective sports scholarship books? Now, I can't speak to, I haven't heard that Miami did this.
It's illegal, I'm pretty sure.
Right. Like you can't do it for one. There are a couple different pieces to this. Like Faison, remember, was a walk-on with the football team and on scholarship with lacrosse last fall. But as soon as Faison took one snap in an actual football game, the football team had to put him on football scholarship. And the reason is, like you just said, it's against the rules because you're basically trying to hide, a football player with a scholarship from a different team, on a different team, on your campus, and you can't do that. And in both of these sports specifically, baseball and lacrosse, those are both partial scholarships. So you can't, so that's another reason that you can't do it, because they wouldn't even be getting full scholarships if they were, on scholarship for those teams. And as you said, it's against the rules. So I don't know exactly what he's referring to with Miami, but maybe they're bringing guys in the door who are playing two different sports, and they might ultimately end up on a football scholarship, but they're, giving them these scholarships with these other sports to begin with. But essentially, as soon as you play football, because it's a full scholarship, then you have to be on a football scholarship.
Can you imagine what some schools would do? They would have like I'm just putting out randomness, but like a men's field hockey team, and they would just load it up with a bunch of football players so that they could have, 110 guys on scholarship, but then just use the field hockey team on the football team. You know what I mean? Like they would be hiding. There would be schools that would be hiding players all over the place in all of these random sports.
Lets you cheat the 85-man scholarship limit is what it does.
100%.
If you did that. And that's why as soon as you play football, you have to be on a football scholarship.
Yes. All of a sudden teams would have rowing teams, and they would have all these different things. And hey, look at these two sport athletes, on the rowing scholarship, but he also happens to be a 5-star quarterback or something. It would be ridiculous is what it would be. And so,
okay. So Carlos is going back. He says back in the day, he was talking about the Miami 30 for 30. Well, again, I don't know when the rule changed, but it's a rule now that you can't do that. And that's the reason, Miami might be the reason why,
that's true.
Ultimately,
I didn't even know it was a rule until the Faison thing occurred, to be honest with you.
I didn't realize that, the minute you play one down, you have to change. But from a lacrosse, I can speak to, having, been there when, Jeff Samardzija and Eric Moss, people forget about Eric Moss. Remember the Notre Dame, he was a punter and he was also a pitcher for the baseball team. Golden Tate, all those different guys like that, the baseball team, they like that because that's one guy that they don't have to worry, because they only have 11.7 scholarships. That's the guy they don't have to worry about. He's on a full scholarship with a different sport. And that means that they can go out and bring in another player and give somebody else some scholarship money, because they don't have to worry about that football player, because, he's got everything taken care of.
Oh, it's totally beneficial to these other sports, totally beneficial. But when there's conflicts, football's going to win. I mean, that's, you know what I mean? So it's just how it is. Just how it is.
Right. But it's a good question though, Carlos, just because I think that there probably is some misconception, for some people, because again, everyone's worried about, well, how are you going to get around the scholarship limit and all that kind of stuff? Well, can't you just put these guys back on the scholarship with their other sports? You can't do that. Because, and that's the specific reason why, is so that the football team doesn't try to finagle its way around the 85-man limit by stashing guys on scholarship on other sports.
Just saw on Twitter, Bryce McPherson committed to Maryland.
Okay.
Didn't see that one coming.
I think I might have heard some people talking about he might be headed out.
Okay.
Or something.
It's about a half hour ago he put it out there.
Interesting. Okay. Be curious to see if he's got, big fat endorsements.
Yeah, right.
As the
100%.
What's 100%. Going on with that? So Balpine Shalali Says, curious if less players transferring in the portal will affect Freeman's ability to add guys to fill talent holes in the roster. He says, though I love guys staying, great culture. So what do you think about that? Like, do you think that could be affected, those needs that they do need to address? Or do you think that he basically, sort of still finds ways to get that done?
The short answer is no, I don't. Because if he finds somebody that he really wants to bring in that's going to make his roster better, he'll figure out a way to bring him in and make his roster better. Again, whether that's just letting a guy know, hey, it's time to transfer, or we're letting a guy know, hey, it's time to go on medical scholarship, or just saying we don't have a scholarship for you anymore. I mean, and that's a crappy conversation to have with a kid. But at the end of the day, it is Marcus Freeman's responsibility to have the best roster he can put together, and he will. And whether that means he has to have a tough conversation with a kid or not.
Yeah. I mean, there are going to be some conversations where he's probably just going to have to flat out say, look, if you want to play football, it's not going to stay here. If you stay here, we're going to, we honor your scholarship because that's what they'll do, but it's not going to be on the football team, like that kind of thing. And whether it's medical or otherwise, the conversations do get tougher when guys decide to stay. I mean, you love the fact that guys want to stay and, be with the team and fight for spots, like starting spots and depth chart and whatever else. But the bottom line is there are needs that they've got to address, and they're going to have some tough conversations now to make that happen, because they're still going to have to field the football team.
Yeah, right. And again, at the end of the day, that's his responsibility, right? I mean, he has to field the best possible team that he possibly can, and sometimes that means having some tough conversations with people.
Chief Brody says, why do they want to stay so bad?
Why do they want to stay on the roster?
I mean, why do they want to stay so bad?
Notre Dame degree.
Maybe they love their team.
I was just going to say the same thing. I mean, look, people are on teams and they form relationships with their teammates and their coaches and their professors and friends on campus. And sometimes it's not just all about football, and you got a scholarship to play at Notre Dame. If they're going to keep giving it to you, take it. I have no problem with guys that want to stick around. None whatsoever, and I hope it works out for them. Some of it might not, but some of them might.
So, Vince, we recently talked about Knute Rockne's first home in South Bend being moved to make way for new housing that was being built. Well, over the weekend, Knute Rockne was literally moved.
Exhumed.
He was exhumed at Highland Cemetery. He, his wife, and his son and grandsons were all exhumed and reburied in the cemetery over at Notre Dame. So I'm curious, we didn't get a chance to talk about this. What do you think about this?
First of all, I had no idea that this happened until it already happened, when it got hit social media or whatever.
I guess they closed down the cemetery on Sunday and you couldn't get in or out or any of that.
Crazy.
Stuff.
Absolute craziness. I think it makes a lot of sense. Obviously, Knute Rockne is a very important figure in Notre Dame history and the foundation of Notre Dame football and all of those different things. By moving him and obviously his loved ones to Notre Dame, you ensure the fact that nothing's ever going to happen to their graves and to, their coffins and bodies and all of that stuff. You can't really make that claim at just a random cemetery in South Bend, because you just never know. Maybe it gets bulldozed over. Maybe all this different stuff can happen. I mean, they moved his house for new housing, for goodness sakes.
Right.
What's to stop people from moving him? And so I think putting him at Notre Dame at least ensures everything is going to be fine and he has a final resting place that is safe forever.
Had you ever been out to Highland Cemetery to see his grave or anything? I had
never.
Within a year or two after I moved here, someone who I worked with, who was a Notre Dame alum, was like, I know where Knute Rockne is buried. So we went out there one day, because it wasn't far from the radio station that I worked at. It was only a couple miles
away.
It's out
that way. Okay.
And it was literally, Highland Cemetery. It's like you kind of go in and then, you kind of maybe veered to the left. You didn't have to go far. And it was literally, how cemeteries are with, the streets and
sure.
the roads are relatively narrow, but literally sat kind of on this corner, and there was a big headstone there, Knute Rockne in the whole thing, but it was just like right there, so it was very accessible, which, I always thought was kind of cool. It's like if anyone knew, and a few years later, a friend of mine came to town and we went out there and we, checked it out and all that kind of stuff. But I guess that's I did see, I think the granddaughter said, like people were putting cigars out on the headstone and just, like not the kind of stuff that you would want, to see done, so I think they definitely feel like they'll all be more secure and better taken care of at Notre Dame than out at Highland Cemetery, so
good call.
But it was very interesting. Like you said, I had no idea this was happening until after some of the stories started popping up over the weekend.
Right.
That it happened.
Yeah. Makes sense though.
And his, you remember his plane went down where, he died in Kansas, and that was
That's
not
right.
It was only like an hour and a half, I think, from where I lived in Kansas out there. So it wasn't very far away. But
so it's your fault.
Yeah, yeah. Because in 1930s, I'm the one who sent the gangsters, the mobsters.
It's your fault. It's your fault.
Right. Fill in the blank. If you could change any rule in sports, it would be blank. Is this the one you're struggling with?
This is the one. This is just so broad of a question because there's so many sporting events that I'm sure there's a million that bother me in the moment, but my brain doesn't work that way. I can't narrow it down. That's my problem. You know what I mean? I would, and it's not even a rule, but I want the Super Bowl to start at 3. You know what I mean? Those are the things that I want to occur. I want college football's national championship to not be on a Monday. I couldn't come up with any rules. What do you got?
I know both of those. The start times. I don't know. Are they technically rules? No,
no,
they're not rules. But I would, I would go for both of those actually. Maybe even over what I'm gonna say. Like Joe says, Super Bowl on a Saturday. I wouldn't mind seeing that because then you got Sunday. And you don't have to worry about going to work the next day and all that different kind of stuff. Mine is the targeting rule in college football.
Oh yeah, it's terrible. Terrible.
I hate the targeting rule, and I still want to change. My thing is first, if you're gonna throw a flag for targeting, first incident, just make it a 15-yard standard personal foul. If they do it a second time in a game, then you can eject. I've just always thought that there's way too much subjectivity involved in this targeting because the guys on the field and the people in the booth, I think that they all just apply their own opinions to whether or not they actually think it is. And it's just, there's so much gray area involved that I don't think a guy should be ejected on the first instance in a game. Do it on the second.
I like it.
Not the first.
I'm on board. I will second the motion on that. They need to revamp the entire replay system in college football too. Yeah. The NFL replay system.
That's a good one actually too. Yep.
You know what I mean?
Go to that. Just go to the NFL rule. I don't understand why college sticks with
so convoluted. In college, I don't understand what's reviewable, what's not reviewable. When can a coach challenge? When they cannot? It makes no sense to me. So they need to revamp. They just need to go to. You don't even need to revamp it. College rule, gone. NFL rule in college.
Yep.
I'll even spring for the red hanky.
That's all you got to do. That's all you got to do. I love it. John says he does not like the runner at second base in extra innings.
Hate it.
I don't like it either, but I understand.
Yeah.
I understand why baseball is doing it. Basically, they need to expand the rosters is what they need to do. Because the reason they're doing it is because they want to, they don't want these marathon games because they don't want to burn out all the pitching in an 15 or 18 inning game or whatever it happens to be. So they're just trying to get it over quicker. I will say there is a lot more action, that tends to happen in extra. It's kind of ironic. You almost have more action in extra innings these days than sometimes you have in the game, but the game has become so bullpen reliant that's why they've done it. Like I said, just expand the rosters. But I agree. Like I've always thought it's obviously like a very little league thing to do. And
Yeah, I
the
don't
fact
like
that you're
it.
doing it at a major league game, I don't like it either.
And I knew I wouldn't like the big ass bases that they use now, but like I've gotten used to it, I guess. I still think it looks goofy. I still think it looks like senior softball or
It's
something
funny
like
because
that.
I haven't really I don't even notice it that much, the size of the bases out there.
I noticed it more when it first happened, and now it's kind of just blending in. And so I guess it is what it is.
Yeah. Joe wants them to go back to sudden death in football. First team who wins scores. Well, I mean, those were fun to be able to say sudden death overtime, but they're not going backwards now because everyone fought tooth and nail to make sure that both teams
Everybody
get
gets a chance.
Everybody
gets a chance. That's kind of that's on par with like the everybody gets a trophy rule, man. Like everybody gets to touch the football. All right, I don't know. I tend to agree with going back to the first one wins.
DK says football should get penalty boxes allowed to fight. Now that would make things interesting.
Yes, it would. They have to keep their helmet on. My favorite's when football players get in a fight and they start punching each other in the helmet.
Yeah, I know.
So stupid.
It's like, what are you doing? What are you doing, man? Tommy says you're missing my most superly important mailbag question. You're going to have to resubmit, Tommy, because I'm not sure exactly what it is.
I brought your stuff up before, man.
Somehow.
You made a good point earlier. I brought it up, but I didn't see a question.
Yeah.
Sorry, man.
I was just looking. Still haven't got that response from Jesse, by the way. I do see that he's got his notifications silenced. So
point of order, when somebody's got their notifications silent and it says, do you want to notify anyway? Every time I want to notify anyway. Every time. Don't give me the option. Don't give me the option if you don't want me to do it. I will notify you every time.
That's right.
Because when I'm sending a text, I want an answer. All right. I want an answer. If I didn't want an immediate answer, I'd send you an email.
Yep. John says Jesse's sleeping. He might be taking a nap right now. I don't know.
Probably getting ready for a big night out.
He's actually been doing some work for me this week, so I can't give him too much of a hard time.
Interesting.
So, yeah. So Ryan Sandberg is going to be the 5th Chicago Cub to get a statue outside Wrigley Field. You good with that?
I am so good with that. I think that's long overdue, to be honest with you. I don't know what spurned the fact that they want to do this now. I don't know if it's his cancer scare or, whatever the case may be, but I think it's long overdue. He's one of the great players in Cubs history. I almost said that, well, for the next question, I'll get back to it. But for this one, I think Ryan Sandberg absolutely deserves a statue out front. Absolutely. That's my Ryan Sandberg bat right there. It's on every show.
Is it?
Signed by Rhino.
Nice.
Yeah, man.
I don't think I realized that.
Yep. It was when so I got this bat and it's got etched into it like all of his career highlights and his MVP and all that. And it's got, a fake signature that's emblazoned into the wood. Well, back when he was coaching the single A Peoria Chiefs. They came to town to play the single A. I think they were the Silverhawks at the time. Obviously, they were not the South Bend Cubs. And I took my bat with me, and I was able to get it actually signed. So he actually signed it right above the wood etching signature. And one of my players made me a thing to hold it up on the wall in wood shop. And so it's been hanging on my wall ever since.
Love it.
There's your story.
So he's going to be the 5th. Ernie Banks, Billy Williams, Ron Santo, Ferguson Jenkins, Harry Carey all have statues currently at Wrigley Field.
I think he fits right into that group.
I think so as well. And they built that new area outside on the left field side. So I don't know exactly where they're going to put it, but it seems like you got a chance to kind of put, more statues out there.
Absolutely.
And stuff like that. So my next question is, speaking of next day, and I love it as well. I mean, of all the guys who I think that you would put a statue out there of Ryan Sandberg makes the most sense.
Yes.
Sosa obviously would have at one point, but that obviously changed about 20 years ago. Right.
Yeah. And he has a chance. I believe they're kind of making up at the moment. It sounds like he's going to be coming back at some point. So, maybe he can kind of get his good graces back, but I don't know if it's going to be enough for a statue.
Yeah, I think he'll have a tough time.
Yeah.
Statue.
Yeah. I mean, I think they can honor him at the stadium, that kind of like come back at the standing O, all of those different things. But I think he's a far cry away from getting a statue. But I would not be upset about a Sammy Sosa statue. I really wouldn't be.
Here's my question, though.
This is a tough one.
They just won a world championship, breaking a century-old drought
in
they did. 2016. So does someone from that team need a statue at Wrigley Field?
No. They don't. I don't know who it would be. I really don't, because it was a very team-oriented World Series. There was different heroes on different nights and, different things like that. And frankly, nobody was on that team long enough to get a statue.
And that's the problem. Kyle Hendricks is the only guy who is even still left from that team, which is amazing that it was only 8 years ago, and that's all that's left right now. But
I wouldn't make him. I'm just saying, you're to your point, he is the longest tenured guy. He doesn't deserve a statue out
Does
front.
Joe Madden, because he's the manager who brought it home? Does Joe Madden does Theo? Theo deserve a statue?
You know what I would do? Well, no, because he went back to the Red Sox.
But the problem with all of those guys is even Madden is gone. I guess is my point.
Yeah, exactly.
Nobody is around from that team.
What I would do, because it's an iconic picture if you're a Cubs fan, is the kind of mob on the mound after they won the Game 7 and all that, and they're the whole team is standing, because it wasn't like an on the ground mob. They're all standing with all their backs, and they're all right. Do a statue of that with the whole team right there. That I could get on board with to commemorate the World Series.
That wouldn't be bad, but that's kind of goes against your everyone gets a trophy thing, though, doesn't it?
Well, the team got the trophy.
I see what you're saying. The team did get a trophy,
right?
But that's a lot of trophy to build if you're going to do the mob scene.
It is, but that I don't think anybody stands out. You know what I mean? It's
the problem is it should have been Rizzo, and they should have re-signed Rizzo.
Yes,
Rizzo should still be on the team right now,
and he would get a statue,
and he would be thought of as the the lasting legacy.
They blew it
that, and then he would get a statue.
They would absolutely blew it, because he is the one that I would have picked, because he was there at the beginning of the rebuild. He was there for the big time. And then he bolted. Not all his fault, but yes, absolutely, he would have been the one for me.
Yeah, because again, if Madden had worked out and he was still around, because could be almost 10 years later at this point, I think he would make sense.
Sure,
but
you got an argument there.
It's just crazy that that
left.
Again, it's not going to be Kyle Hendricks, but basically that whole team is just long gone.
Right. I mean, it's not
it's only been Miami 8 years ago.
It's not like the Florida Marlins, and they were literally all there for 1 year. It's not that bad, but the core was there for a little while, but not long enough for for legendary stat. That team will always be legendary. I just don't know that anybody in particular will be.
Tommy now is coming after you about
he is.
Everything that he can.
When did I ever say I hate vets?
I know.
I mean, I hate kids.
I hate
kids,
losers. You hate vets. Who else do you hate? Losers.
Apparently. I mean, I'm in education, so I don't know if I can say I hate kids, but
all right. Well, I think that's going to do it for tonight. Again, we're going to talk a little hoops on tomorrow's show.
Okay. Thought that said something else, Chief.
I know.
Wow. I was like, dang. But no, he just said Jaws. Okay.
Oh, so Tommy's coming. No, we're not going to talk about that on this show, Tommy. Sorry. That's not. We're not going down those. We're not going.
Yeah,
down
that's
those.
tough. That's tough. That's an off the air conversation right there.
Right. Exactly. All right. Well, that is going to do it for tonight. Again, Tom Noy will be here tomorrow. We'll talk a little hoops. Jesse will be in after that. We'll have some rapid fire with him. I think we're all three together on Friday for the rapid fire.
That's the plan.
Show, right?
That is the plan. Yep.
All right. Awesome. So we got that coming up on Friday. And don't forget, Friday is a 5:00 show, because some people do forget about that. Might have to post something on the boards to kind of remind people about that on Friday. So hit that like button. We do appreciate it, and it helps us out greatly. And of course, subscribe, rate, review, listen to your Irish Breakdown podcasts as well. Vince, I will talk to you later. We'll talk
Yes,
to
sir.
everybody else tomorrow on IB Nation
Woo!
Talk.